Tallies, a dynamic four-piece band comprised of Sarah Cogan on lead vocals, rhythm guitar, Dylan Frankland on lead guitar, Cian O'Neill on drums, Stephen Pittman on bass. Their music is a captivating blend of indie guitar, pop, and shoegaze, creating a melodic soundscape that resonates with a wide range of listeners, including this podcaster. Each member brings their unique flair and expertise to the group, resulting in a cohesive yet diverse musical experience that is quite infectious. Today on Surprise Cast, we're bringing in Sarah and Dylan from the band Tallies. Welcome.
Hello, William. Thanks for having us.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for being part of this. How are you doing today?
Doing great. It's a beautiful day here in Toronto. You can maybe see it out the window. It's pretty good. Pretty good day.
Sarah, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you both for being part of this 1 hour experience, if you will. And in today's conversation, we're going to break it into 3 parts. 1, family experiences, impactful moments. Number 2, friendship. And number 3, the body of your work. This is all based around a book written by Arthur C. Brooks called Build the Life You Want, The Art and Science of Getting Happier, with some side commentary by a woman that goes by the name of Oprah Winfrey. Who knew? All righty. Let's take a stroll down memory lane. Dylan, you're going to go first here.
All right.
So I've been reading this book, The Artist's Way, Spiritual Path to Higher Creativity, written by best-selling author Julia Cameron. And in this section of the book, she wants us to examine our childhood a little bit. So, Dylan, I'm going to read these phrases. You're going to fill in the blank. And then when I'm done, Sarah, you're going to go right after him.
Okay.
Here we go. Dylan, as a kid, I missed the chance to
learn everything. To learn French. I learned that chance. There you go.
Dylan, as a kid, I lacked,
I guess, discipline, maybe.
As a kid, I could have used
some ADD medication.
As a kid, I've dreamed of being
who I am right now. No, well, maybe I'm still dreaming though, but yeah.
Love it. Dylan, as a kid, I wanted a
dirt bike.
In my house, we never had enough.
I guess movie nights, but I don't really watch that many movies. So yeah, I guess I could have, because a lot of people don't. They ask me about movies and I'm like, I've never seen it. So we could say that, movie nights.
Fair enough. No right or wrong here. I beat myself up about the loss of.
I got kicked out of a band, my first band. That I beat myself up about that.
Great. I mean, not great, but thank you for sharing.
I mean, I got better at a lot of things after that because I didn't want it to happen again. So, yeah.
Dylan, let me ask you this question. I would love for you to tell the listeners a little bit about your childhood experiences. Where did you grow up? Were there some impactful moments that still affect you today, positive or negative? Anything you want to share about school, family life, go for it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, positive experience. Like I grew up in Barrie, Ontario, which is like an hour and a half north of Toronto. It's pretty nice, like little town, but it has its like dark small town stuff for sure. You know, my mom definitely very influential, pushing me. I could have definitely became. Can you swear on here? No. Yeah. Okay. I definitely would have been a fuck up kid for sure, but I definitely had some help and pressure to do that. And you know, I had a good high school teacher that really helped me. He like taught me how to sing and play guitar, Mr. Becking. That was very positive stuff, you know, kept me out of the drugs and stuff like that. So that was pretty good, which was really getting popular. Is that good? Is that good? That's pretty good, right? Barrie, Ontario. Grew up with Keen, our drummer. So we met in like School of Rock camp, which is pretty funny. It's like kind of a summer camp based off of the Jack Black movie, and it was really cool. We would make like our own. We weren't in the same band, but we met at like during the camp, and it was a fun experience to start a band in a week and then do a performance in front of the parents. But the friendship that we made was definitely the biggest thing we got out of it.
Thank you for sharing. Did I miss something there? Did you mention anything about your father?
He kind of had all this, like these vinyls hidden away when I was growing up, but he's brought them all back and he's collecting again. I have like the speakers, these big speakers that I still use, and I actually like feel like he would take me to concerts. Like he took me to an Iron Maiden concert. He took me to like a Korn concert because I was pretty into like the metal at the end of elementary school. And then I guess kind of like, you don't want to like listen to the same music as your parents did. But then I would find my own, like, I would find the music he liked my own way and then realize, oh, I probably like it because you played it. Like Aztec Camera was definitely a big one. When I started listening to that record, I just felt very at home, and then asked my dad about it, and he had the record, and now it's mine. Psychedelic Furs was a big one too, but that one I was definitely aware of because there's like posters in the house and stuff. But he loves like Jeff Beck and Pat Metheny.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. It's not my 100% thing, but yeah.
Thank you. That gives me a better understanding of your childhood experiences.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. I was pretty into like WWE, and so a lot of wrestling on the snowbanks. You couldn't even imagine how big these snowbanks were in Barrie. It's like definitely like still they get taller than me. Like it's like 6-7 feet tall snowbanks. So playing like wrestling on those as a kid, playing King of the Hill was really important to me.
Oh my goodness. Nobody has ever said those words except for my childhood friends. We used to play that in Tahoe on those big snow drifts, those banks.
Where's Tahoe?
Lake Tahoe. It's 4 hours north of San Francisco.
Okay.
Yeah. The Sierra Nevadas. Oh, it's gorgeous. Thank you for sharing. Okay, Sarah, your turn. Here we go. Hi. Okay. So fill in these phrases, please, to the best of your ability. As a kid, I missed the chance to.
I missed the chance to take education more seriously.
As a kid, I lacked.
Probably audio skills for being an audio learner.
Interesting. As a kid, I could have used more time learning instruments. As a kid, I dreamed of being
a singer, a pop star.
In my house, we never had enough.
We never had enough of sit-down dinners. Yeah.
One of the positive things I've heard about COVID with musicians and how that brought them back together. And that's, yeah. As a kid, I needed more.
As a kid, I needed more stuffed animals. Never had enough Beanie Babies.
But how many did you have?
They had all the little names and the tags. Yeah. You probably put them in the car in the back seat.
Yeah. And in plastic cases on shelves.
Oh my goodness. A couple more here. Let's do this one. Mm-hmm. I am sorry that I will never again see.
I am sorry that I will never again see probably my great grandmother. She was around till I was 12, so I was really close with her.
If she comes up in your mind during this conversation in any fashion, feel free to bring her up.
Okay.
For years, I have missed and wondered about
if I became a lawyer.
Okay. And last one, I beat myself up about the loss of
a necklace from my aunt who passed away.
Where'd you lose it? Have any idea?
In a change room in a store.
Thank you for sharing. And if you wouldn't mind sharing with the listeners your family experiences, schooling, brothers, sisters, impactful moments that still linger in your mind today.
Sure. Well, I am born and raised in Ottawa, Ontario. It's the capital of Canada. And I grew up in the same house my whole childhood in a nice suburb. And I had a forest in my backyard. And my whole childhood was basically playing around in the dirt. And it was a ravine with some boys on my street. And I always played nurse, and they were always the combaters. So that was my childhood. And I had elementary school right across the street from my house, and I was late every day. And I loved, my favorite things to do was to go to dance classes. When I was little, I used to do all sorts of dance, ballet, tap was my favorite. And I loved, before I even spoke English, before I could even speak as a toddler, I would sing gibberish. Mostly the I Love You Barney song, but like you couldn't tell that it was that song. So, and I used to sing into flowers as a microphone. So a little Morrissey for you there. And yeah, just grew up doing dance. And then I've always loved art. I've always loved to draw and paint when I was younger and express myself and dance and art and singing. And I used to sing to my stuffed animals. Like I always had an audience. So that's what I look back on as my childhood. And I have an older sister. She's 3 years older. She's our number one fan. She cries at every show. And my parents, my father used to play drums, and he was never in a band, but he used to roll with a band, he says. And he had a disco in his basement. And so he was always hanging around bands. So there's the music there. And then my mom is just a very, very talented painter.
Oh.
And yeah. So.
What style of painting?
She used to do like furniture painting, and she'd draw nice little landscapes and like fruit, and on bed. We have a few benches at home that have seasonal little girls and stuff. So it's nice. It's like oil painting she likes to do.
So speaking of painting, you painted a wonderful illustration, a portrait of your childhood experiences that seemed, for the most part, quite positive. Any struggles, any hardships that still affect you today and may appear in the work that you do with Tallies?
Definitely. I struggled with keeping friends when I was little. I always felt like an outsider for some reason. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was definitely, I had some sort of anxiety growing up, and I had a weird social anxiety where I just didn't want to take part in a lot of gatherings, and I just couldn't. I was very shy and quiet when I was younger, and I always just, even with family, I always just kind of felt like,
you have a big family.
I do have a
big family.
I do, yeah. I have such a big family that cousins on my mom's side and a cousin on my dad's side got married. So it's a pretty big family.
But it was clean.
It was clean. Yeah. And yeah. But definitely, I felt like I cared more about making friends and kind of people pleasing. And so, but I always kind of had this weird thing with my mom. That's what the song Mother on our first album is actually about her. And I was kind of raised in a way where I was a little sheltered where it was like, don't go out, don't do that, don't go do this, like, don't do drugs, like, just like, but like everything was kind of like, just don't do it. Like, it's just dangerous. It's bad. The world's scary. Like, don't go out there. And so that's what that song is about. And then in high school, I fell into a deep depression, and that's what No Dreams Affairs is about. I couldn't get out of bed. I basically didn't finish high school in time, and it was just, yeah. So that's where I take from my life with the music.
If you don't mind me asking, going one step further into that song and or your high school experience, looking back in the rearview mirror, Sarah, what do you suppose was the root cause of this depression?
Social pressure.
Like peer pressure.
Yeah, peer pressure, anxiety. It was definitely mental health, all mental health issues that just were not, didn't really learn a lot about it. So, like in school. So I feel like if we learned more about it and I could recognize more of the behaviors I was experiencing and what I was actually like feeling internally instead of just holding it in, and I felt like I was kind of just suffering in myself a little bit.
When I had spoken to Mickey Bereni about this term called shengpa, shengpa is a term for getting hooked on negative behaviors. So if you don't mind sharing, during that depression, were you falling into that rabbit hole of negative behaviors in order to cope with that situation?
I think so. If sleeping all day, staying in bed and not going to school was the negative behavior, it got to the point where I would be driven to school and then I would just hop on a bus and go somewhere else. Yeah, it was, I just didn't want to go to school. I couldn't do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how are your parents handling all this?
They didn't really know how to deal with it. They just really thought they could just stand at my door and try to wake me up and try to get me to go, and just thought like I just was choosing to stay in bed. But I don't blame them. They didn't have an understanding of what was going on. No one really knows about it until you kind of dive deep into looking into it, you know? So
did you have a counselor at school or friends that were helping you along the way to keep you afloat?
no, I didn't. And that was a big part of it. I felt like, I think kids didn't really know how to deal with it either. And sometimes people just kind of shy away from it because it makes them uncomfortable.
Yes.
So, which I understand because you were just teenagers. Like, how would we know how to deal with that? But I think that there's a better education system today where they actually touch on that, and counselors are a lot more aware of what's going on, which is good.
I couldn't concur more, being an educator myself over the last 5 to 7 years, particularly in California, in the Bay Area, done a wonderful job of bringing in all these different programs and counselors to assist children starting at the age of kindergarten all the way to 8th grade, if not high school, on how to explore and examine and go deeper into ourselves and the things that trouble us and communicate those feelings. So we're not this powder keg ready to go off, which unfortunately our society has been riddled with tragic events. We don't need to go into that.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for being vulnerable. I greatly appreciate it. Dylan, this question is for you. In 1987, in Oakland, California, I was in 7th grade, and one of my closest friends, his mom said, "Hey, would you guys like to go see The Cure?" Of course, we want to go see The Cure. This is for the Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me album. First 5 minutes of the show, these enormous Robert Smith vibrant lips are on the screen, and they get a dolly out, and I was transfixed. And from that moment on, I knew The Cure somehow, some way were going to be closest friends of my ears. I want you to talk to us, Dylan, about some Seminal moments while growing up with music. When did it explode in your mind? When did you go down the rabbit hole, whatever bands it was? Give us a little bit of those details, please.
Oh, yeah, and like growing up, like this is like the first introduction to music kind of thing. I guess like when I was in grade 6, however old that is, a friend was like pretty into like I guess the emo music, so like My Chemical Romance and The Used, and then Green Day, Blink-182. My Chemical Romance was probably my favorite when I was in grade 6, and I started playing guitar there. I don't think I could even get to be playing. Like I played like Blink-182, I guess, and stuff like that. Started learning guitar, had trouble in school. So it was like a teacher's recommendation to learn guitar to kind of like help the learning or whatever. And I mean, it definitely was like, it became my passion. So it was really great. And then getting into like metal music at like in like 2 years kind of after that, just basically seeing t-shirts of like Slipknot and being like, what the hell is going on here, and yeah, I really liked that stuff, the aggression and stuff. Like I guess when you're a kid, it's just so relatable. Like, when you're a kid, you just break stuff and run around, and yeah, it was really great. And then I think I was pretty much just getting harder and getting like into more aggressive music. And then in a class for guitar class, we did like a history class, and we got to like the doo-wop era, and like then like the Beach Boys and the Beatles come out of that. And I was like, oh, I love this like kind of innocent, cool, like these, church kids couldn't afford instruments, so they would just make the instruments with their mouths, like bop bop bop, on the streets, because they're just like kind of street kids. I thought that was kind of punk in a way, so got really into Dion and the Belmonts, and all those groups, a lot of singles, good singles. And then kind of got into like hardcore punk, and then took the softer stuff and got into more indie stuff. But I only ever played in like harder music. And then when I met Sarah, I was like, oh, like maybe I could try playing like some of this stuff I'm just fooling around with at home. And then I brought that to the table, and yeah, we started working on more softer music. But Tallies evolved, and it still has some hard moments in Tallies. But when we started making music together, it was like on the much softer side, I'd say.
Thank you for sharing. Sarah, in this book called Good Grief, Peanuts Pick-Me-Ups, there is a cartoon where Charlie Brown is speaking with his good friend Schroeder. And Schroeder is telling Charlie Brown, really, the only thing to listen to in life is Beethoven. Charlie Brown says, oh, good grief. So for you, Sarah, whilst growing up, tell us some bands, solo artists that really captured your imagination and attention.
The first memory that comes to my mind is when I used to push my coffee table in our den away, and then I'd do dances in the den with my sister. And my parents had the Bette Midler CD that had Going to the Church on it. And that was just one of the few CDs that they had. And I used to always dance to that. And then we also had a Seal CD. So I knew a lot of Seal. But my first concert ever was TLC. And before I got to see all 3 of them when Left Eye was still alive. So that was my first concert ever. And that was great. And I loved that they danced and they did everything. So it was all connected for me. So I heard a lot of music in my dance classes, and I listened to a lot of like top radio hits at the time. So I was into Spice Girls and Britney Spears. Like I was into all of that growing up. I wanted to be that pop star. Yeah.
Do you feel that any of those artists that you just mentioned, do you feel that you harness channel some of that energy into your work?
I don't know, because as I've grown up, as an adult, I've discovered a whole different type of favorite music. So
Yeah.
I don't listen to anything really on the radio anymore. I've just been, I feel like I've had the privilege of rediscovering like the 80s and the 90s. And so I'm kind of getting it all now, and I love it. I love it. I wish I was listening to a lot of this when I was growing up.
Now, as I explained in the intro, and I'm sure many critics, writers have used this term, shoegaze, dream pop. When did you start crossing over into that field of music?
When I heard the Sundays for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
And I watched that movie Fear with Mark Wahlberg and Reese Witherspoon. And is it Reese Witherspoon? Yes, I think so. Anyways, so the Wild Horses cover plays while they're on the Ferris wheel doing some naughty stuff. And that song just changed everything that I listened to from that moment. I was like, this is the jangly, like I've never heard that jangle before. So I was like, I had to find more music like that. And so then it changed my life.
So what do you think of when people compare you to the Sundays or Innocence Mission or something of that?
It makes sense because that's what I wanted to do. So I'm happy that it's coming across somewhat similar, and any comparison to those bands is just it's an amazing compliment. So very happy about it.
Thank you both for sharing. Dylan, this is for you. And of course, Sarah, if you want to chime in, go for it. So we're going to move to the second part of this conversation. This is about friendships. We're going to celebrate people that have helped you along the way in your career. Here we go. This is from the book, Build the Life You Want. Arthur C. Brooks writes, a convenient way to do this comes from none other than the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle. In his Nicomachean Ethics, he argued that friendships can be classified along a kind of ladder. At the bottom rung, where people are least connected emotionally, so the commitment is weakest, are the deal friends based on utility to each other in work or social life. These are colleagues, partners to a transaction, or simply those who can do each other favors. Higher up are friendships based on pleasure, something you like and admire. At the highest level of friendships are virtue, of what Aristotle calls perfect friendships. These friendships are an end in themselves and not instrumental to anything else. Aristotle would say they are complete, pursued for their own sake, and fully realized in the present. So, Dylan, my question is, who are some people that have helped you along the way in terms of your work with the Tallies?
The first one that comes to mind is definitely Simon Raymond from like Bella Union and Cocteau Twins, which is like an important part of our story. I think it was our second time. The first time we played in Brighton off the first album, the self-titled album, we played Great Escape, and then the next time we did our own show at Hope and Ruin. And I think it was the morning after we kind of had the day off, and I like watched probably every interview with Simon, and he said like, oh, like, I'll listen to your demo if you like come into the shop and give it to me. I didn't have a demo or anything. Like, we already had our album out and weren't starting the new one at this point. But I was like, oh, like we could just go and meet this guy at the shop. So we went by, and I remember because it was in an alley. They moved it, I think. I haven't been to the new one, but they had this little shop, the Bella Union shop, in the alleyway. What do they call it? The lanes in Brighton. And I remember walking down the corner, seeing Simon Raymond, and I was like, oh shit. And then Sarah's like, what? Is he not there? I was like, no, he's there. And then I walked in there all starstruck and just like was like, hey, I like you. And then Sarah mainly did a lot of the talking, and I just kind of was
Staring.
Yeah, and just like, wow. And he was like so nice. It was like definitely, meeting one of your heroes is really nice. But when they're just like nice beyond belief, it's pretty awesome. And so we kind of got in contact that way. We got a couple records and merch there, and I got his email contact, and then we were playing like Reaper Bond, I think, the next week. And I was like, oh, like, do you have any of your bands playing? And the Penelope Isles were playing, and that's a band on Bella Union. And I went and like caught their set quickly in like the same building as ours. And then when they were in Toronto, we went to their show and kind of made friends with them, and just kept in touch over like a year or so. And then when we actually had music ready, I shared it with him and he loved it. And then, next thing you know, we're putting a record out on Bella Union. So that was definitely like a good friend on the road. And it's good to be out there, like traveling with music. I think it's my favorite part of like, I work in a studio, so maybe I do really love the studio, but it's like I am in the studio almost every day. So going out and playing and meeting people is really fun.
What an incredible story. Sarah, do you want to add anything to that?
To his story?
Yeah.
Did I cover it?
You covered it really well. Yeah. So I just will never forget how scared he was. I will never forget you actually saying those words, like, oh shit. And I was so disappointed. I was like, oh no, like, we're here and he's not here. And he's like, no, he is here. And I was like, I've never seen him scared like that before. It was so cute.
I do have some other cool ones too, if you want another one. Well, our first show in London ever, which was
the Socials.
Yeah, it was at the Social. And what was the record label? Cathedral?
Sonic Cathedral?
Sonic Cathedral was like co-hosting the show. And what was the band opening? Body something? No, they're from Montreal.
Or something.
They're not a band anymore, but we've met some of the guys out there. But anyways, we were playing this show and they had Andy Bell DJing. So like our first show is like, there's like, Andy from Ride and Oasis is there. And I remember like I think we maybe after sound check or something, he was hanging out there and like he kind of had a hat on and was just sitting alone, like almost like just trying not to drink or something like that. And I just went up and I was like, oh, are you Andy Bell? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, do you mind if I sit down with you for like a little bit? And he was like, yeah, of course. And we just talked, and that was also like, that guy is so nice. And, he told me stories about, Ride going to the US for the first time and stuff, and really nice. And, didn't really keep kind of hard guy to keep in contact, but when we were on our like last 2023 November tour, we kind of had 3 weeks booked, and then we were ending the tour in Germany, and then I saw that Ride announced a show in Dusseldorf. And so I reached out to Andy Bell and I was like, can we please open for you? He had seen us before. He said he liked us. And then he said yes, and it happened. So he extended the tour for another week and opened for that show. And what a way to end a tour. It was awesome. The German Ride fans bought all of the rest of the vinyl we had, and then we got to see Ride, which I think we saw them 2 more times before that on that tour, because we had a day off, and saw Ride play in London, and then we played a German festival and Ride played, and then Teenage Fan Club played. That was really fun. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Okay. In hearing these delicious narratives, Sarah, how do you respond to, okay, how do I ask this? Being on the other side now, if people recognize you and they feel a little nervous. Hey, can I meet, can I talk to you? Or, can I get a selfie? How do you respond to that?
With open arms. It's so crazy because I don't get any anxiety or any fear or nerves when it comes to doing what we're doing. It just feels right. It just feels like I could be myself, and just singing is what I know and love and what I really enjoy doing. So it's like, what can go wrong, Yeah. So when people want to come up and talk about it and express or share about it, it's just, I'm so open to it and I love it. And it's very sweet.
And Sarah, are there any other friend-tourships you would like to mention that have helped Tallies along the way?
Mine's really corny, and it has to be Dylan.
Oh,
I know. We met in college, sorry. And
oh no, I can hear you fine.
Okay, good. Sorry. I was never sharing my own music with anyone until he came up to me in one of our classes before our prof started doing the class. And he comes up to me in front of me on the desk and he goes, "Do you want to make a Sarah Cogan EP?" And I was like, "What? What is an EP?" And then we just started working because we had a lab where our labs were in a recording studio in college. And then we just used time to make music together. And instead of just making silly music, we actually made music for our band. And so that's how our band formed. And so him believing in my songs that I shared with him and him approaching me is what opened up every door for me. And that's what happened. We formed the band and he basically made it all happen. And he's so inspiring because he's so incredible at networking and meeting people and socializing. And basically every connection we've ever had is because of him. So I couldn't do any of this without him.
Thanks. Dylan, what are your thoughts on that?
That's very kind. I mean,
I thought you were going to say that's very accurate.
That's flattering. Thanks.
Yeah. One more thing before we move to the third and final part of this conversation. And Dylan, this question is for you. When we think of Cocteau Twins, Simon Raymond, Liz Fraser, Robin Guthrie, some people tend to put these people on such a pedestal. You've had the good fortune of meeting Simon. Tell the listeners, what's something you gained from that experience? What's something that you can share about his personality that you appreciate?
Oh, definitely just being a nice, good person when you're probably in the position where you don't need to be. I think that's pretty inspiring. It's just giving this just a nervous fan the time of day to talk to them when he doesn't have that much time.
Right.
That's really, really nice. So it's something I'll definitely remember on how those guys were to me. If anyone was doing something similar, if the roles were reversed, I'll have to remember that.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you remember when we went for brunch with them in Austin?
Yeah.
And do you remember he was tapping on the table? It's like the music is constantly living in him because he was hearing the music in the restaurant and he was tapping it out. And our bass player, our new bass player is Cam Alford now. It's no longer Stephen Pittman. Sorry, I just wanted to add that. He was like, he's tapping out the bass. Like he's totally doing the bass of the song. And it was just like, he was just talking with us and just kind of doing it. And it was like, that's incredible.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing. And Andy Bell, it sounded like you had that really nice, warm experience with him as well. And I've heard he's been very inviting and champion for bands, and as well as Mark Gardner, Simon Scott, all these people.
Yeah. Mark have become friends. He does mastering and stuff. So I've sent a couple records I've produced to him to finish them off. And so we have a good relationship that way. And hung out. He was just in, I guess he's probably hitting San Francisco on the next run in like December.
In December, that's correct.
But they did Toronto on, I guess it was like this, or in May, early May. And yeah, we got to chat with him and Steve, and that was like, that's really funny. Like I really like Steve. He's really funny. They're all great.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we could talk hours about some of those stories, but we're going to transition into the third and final part of this conversation. This pillar, if you will focus on Tallies and the body of work. I want to read something to you both. And Sarah, I'm going to have you respond first. This is from a book called The Creative Act, A Way of Being, written by the phenomenal and legendary producer Rick Rubin, Beastie Boys, Slayer, Johnny Cash. This chapter is called Seeds. He says, in the first phase of the creative process, we are to be completely open, collecting anything we find of interest. We can call this the seed phase. We're searching for potential starting points that, with love and care, can grow into something quite beautiful. At this stage, we are not comparing them to find the best seed. We are simply gathering them. A seed for a song could be a phrase, a melody, a bass line, or a rhythmic feel. For a structure, a shape, material choice, function, or the natural properties of a location. Collecting seeds typically doesn't involve a tremendous amount of effort. It's more a receiving of a transmission, a noticing. What are your thoughts on this?
I believe that. I have little notes on my phone of just, I guess, my noticings. Like, I don't know if I can say that, but it could just be like the reflection from a colored glass on the surface. I've seen that, and I've had to write down something on my phone. It's just little feelings that spark for me, little sparks of beauty and little joy that I'm just like, oh, like the shadow of that is so stunning. I have to use it as a metaphor somewhere, like, so I'll notice those little things and write that down. I have a few sentences. Someone will say something kind of poetic casually. I'll just have to write it down. And then I just have a whole little notes on my phone of when those moments come up.
I have heard time and again from musicians where seeds have been planted along the way. Some of them have been watered, fertilized, if you will, and they grow and bloom into something very special. In terms of songs, some of these songs have been sitting around for 10, 15 years, and finally they have a sprouting. Is that how that works for your work, particularly with this album, Patina? Or did you say, okay, you know what? We're going to gather our seeds and we're going to put down 10 to 12 tracks?
I think we gathered our seeds and put down the tracks.
Yeah.
But the way that the songs come to is
it's different every time.
It's different every time, but
and we did do the album in like 2 parts, like at the same studio and everything. But I think we did No Dreams Affairs, Hearts Underground, Heaven's Touch, Wound Up Tight, and When Your Life Is Not Over in the first half. And then that's actually the half we sent to Simon. And then he was kind of on board. And then we did the other 4 songs. And yeah, it is like some of them were more of like a jam and like a performance, and maybe lyrically realized right from the start. And then some of them, like Memento, was like a demo I did, and then it was kind of totally figured out in the studio.
Lyric writing. I've heard everything under the sun. Some artists, musicians love it. Some it's just very painful based on the poetry they put down or maybe just conjuring up ideas. In terms of lyric writing for you, is that something you embrace, something you look forward to doing, or is it a battle?
I dread it. I dread it to a point. Like in the moment when we're writing, it all starts from the feeling and the sound, and the melody comes first for me. And I love discovering what words just flow naturally in a melody idea. And then I'll come up with a sentence and then I'll go from there. And then it'll be sometimes the day before going in the studio where it's like, okay, I have to write verses with this that are on the same feeling. So it all comes to and it makes sense in the end, but it never starts with, oh, I want to write about this. It's never like that. It's always, I'll sing, I'll hum, I'll speak gibberish. And then it'll just be like, okay, well, I know what this song is because it naturally fell into this vibe. So that's how I write.
Thank you for sharing. Can we talk about a song from the album or two?
Yeah.
I would like to start with Memento. Did this song come organically or was this a struggle?
This song was a struggle for me.
I remember.
Because I couldn't find the melody. I couldn't find a melody that I liked enough, that where my voice was just where it was just wasn't happening naturally for me, like which it always kind of does. So I was having the hardest time finding words and melodies and to go along with, because all the instrumentation was written first. And so I just felt like I could never do it justice. I was like, we should just make this an instrumental. But
yeah, it is funny because I think you didn't really like it at first. I don't know if it's just because you had a hard time.
I had such a difficult time with it. So it was.
And I was like, it's my masterpiece.
Yeah, but then it turned out to be, I think, a beautiful song. So, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of had the chorus, which was pretty weird. Like, I remember feeling like this is weird, but I have the idea. So
he actually, yeah, you came up with that chorus.
I think
melody.
We would have like switched the lyrics or something but it like the chorus melody was like some kind of chanty kind of thing, but it came out different than maybe it was in the demo. Yeah,
when you kind of got me rolling with it when you started talking about like, gotta get you on your way now, gotta like bring
it's
you
like
on up.
Pick me up.
Yeah, it's pick me up, and then it's just kind of like having memories that just pick you up as opposed to bringing you down. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I'm not going to try to be too fanboyish here. So I will temper my emotions. This is my favorite track from this album for a variety of reasons. Some you just alluded to. There's a lot going on in this song. And I love the phenomenal marriage of the vocal work, the incredible instrumentation that is anchoring down this song. It's a very, for me, a spine-tingling song. It's breathtaking. There's sadness, there's melancholia to it. And to me, I feel like, if you don't mind me saying this, I feel like it's some of your best vocal work. It's not a structured song in the sense of here's the verse, here's the chord. It does, to me, it doesn't have those flavors. And that's what I love about it. And when I first heard this, I was like, holy shit, this is truly phenomenal. It's one of those songs that I don't need to be on a beach listening to this. It just comes to me. I don't need to be in the most beautiful parts of San Francisco walking these beautiful streets. It just comes to me. So I need to ask you to, when you're creating these songs, obviously, as you mentioned, Sarah, the music came first. Are you trying to evoke specific feelings for the listener, or are you trying to evoke feelings for yourself first?
I think for myself,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. It feels like a release most of the time.
Yeah.
And then I'm always surprised and shocked to hear people's responses to our music. And thank you, by the way. That is very, very nice what you said about the performance. So I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I'm never really thinking about, like, we do think about a little bit, like how they're going to take, like how a listener will take it.
Yeah.
But we just want it to sound nice. I never really think like I'm going to make an impact on anybody.
So Dylan, with a song like Memento, I've actually never seen Tallies play live here in the Bay Area. When this song is played, what's the response from the audience? And do you go even louder with this song?
This is a good question.
He's always loud.
Yeah.
It's very loud.
Because it seems like one of those songs, man, sometime during this set, we are going to hit full throttle, even though the tempo's not very fast at all.
Oh, yeah. That is actually the difficult part about it, is to keep it kind of... I definitely think we were playing it. It was the hardest one to pull off, I'd say, on the record, because of how sensitive the mood is, and then it like explodes.
Yes.
But the definitely the bridge or the verses are the hardest part, because we strip everything down like on that first verse, and I'm doing this like weird like plucky lower rhythm thing, but I think it's pretty natural. I thought it was going to be pretty hard to pull off, and I thought that we would have to like maybe get like some backing track kind of assistance to like fill it out, but we've never done that, and we just didn't do it, and just said we're just going to play the song how it is, and if it's different, then it's different. But I think we actually play it pretty close to the record somehow. I don't know.
Well, maybe one day we'll see it performed live. Sarah, you get the next pick. A track you would like to talk about? Anything for Patina? Wound Up Tight, Catapult, Heaven's Touch, Special?
I love Wound Up Tight.
Okay. You want to talk about that one?
I love singing it. I love performing it because I get to have a lot of fun. And I love the look on people's faces too when we just play this set, and then it's usually our last song, and they're just like, whoa, what is going on? And then we start with like a little hum, and I feel like I'm just teasing everybody, and I just go into this weird character. Kind of want to name her like Bianca or something, and I just kind of get all like, I'm gonna shock you right now. And yeah, I get to do a little bit of like throat stuff. So it's a fun one. Yeah. And yeah,
it's a belter.
Yeah, it is. It feels great. Yeah. I also like the music video for it because we took a picture of my dad's a car guy. We took one of his sports cars, and we're in this sports car in the video, and it's his. So I love it.
And Dylan, what's your take on this song?
Well, it's interesting because I remember we were in the rehearsal room, and we were trying to write a song, and it wasn't really going like well, like we kind of hit some roadblocks. So then we kind of just started like messing around with like, basically I just started doing what I don't do, which is like almost playing, like I kind of did like a weirder power chord, but essentially it's kind of like that. And so it's just something that was kind of it was out of frustration, basically being like, fuck, like how did I'm just gonna like, and then we Steven had a bass line, and we just like jammed this little thing. And when we brought it to the studio, it was like we had 4 songs, and then we had, well, let's try this like jam we had. It was actually like, you know, when we listened to the voice memo, I didn't like enjoy it while it was happening. I was just kind of like being like just angry, and then
which is perfect for
and
the
then
song.
yeah, and then we listened to the voice memo. I was like, this actually has something kind of like we were thinking maybe something kind of stereo labby, because like a lot of the distortion in that track is actually a keyboard, but it sounds like a distorted guitar. My guitar is actually pretty clean until like the solo at the end.
Yeah.
But live, we don't even do the keyboard. You can't really tell it's a keyboard. It's like an ace tone through a rat pedal, and like sounded very metal. And we were like, this is weird, whatever. Like we were really just did not care about that song. Like we were just kind of trying to mess around with it. And then like the jam was only a minute long or something. And then when we went back to it, we were like, oh, this is like actually turning out really good. So we just like looped the whole song again. So the drums and bass are like, it just like repeats. And then I think the ending, we like overdubbed the bass to like when it gets really aggressive, but the song just was only half that length. And it was supposed to be just some kind of weird interlude, but then it ended up being a single on it. Yeah, that was an interesting one.
Well, it's what we love about shoegaze dream pop. It has this salt on the ears, right? But it can be very sonically pleasing, and you have to find the beauty within the layers and the cascading sound. And I imagine that song just completely goes off in a live fashion. Which I do want to ask you this very hard question. And I love asking musicians this. So I know you've been to San Francisco and have performed. I've never seen you perform because I'm an idiot. I will one day. We know today, sometimes it's a big commitment to go out and see a concert. You park, you pay for the parking. You may go out to dinner, you buy drinks. You might buy merchandise to support the band. It could be a 3 to 4 hour affair. And sometimes it doesn't pay off. It feels a little disappointing. And the reason is because I've seen shows where the band gets up there and they do their thing. It's pleasing, but there's no connection. There's zero. And it's frustrating. Well, I'm going to ask you this question. How do you connect with your audience? And how do you know they're having a good time?
That's a hard question, because it's also hard to even know if it's going well or not. Like sometimes you're like, that, I don't know if that was good, and people do really like it, or you hear some feedback or watch like a video and you're like, oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought or something. Like it's never going to be that bad with us, I hope. Like we've done a lot of like, quick line checks and just get up and play. And like, I think the best thing is just to ignore all the technical difficulties. Like, oh, I can't hear myself. It's like, just smart, like pretend you can't, I can, like, it is a vibe kill when you're watching a band and they can tell you're frustrated with something, and it really takes out of the performance. But it's something I guess when you're on stage, sometimes you just feel it. Like you're like, oh, like you push a little bit and you can just kind of feel the audience responding to that. And it gives you like more room to push more. And it's like, but there's nothing that really, like, I mean, cheering and clapping is a thing, but there is some kind of like,
when there's more movement, when you can see like we do have a lot of dancers sometimes. And so that's like, well, you wouldn't be dancing if you didn't like it. I usually look for, I look at the exit.
In the distance.
Yeah. I always look at the exit sign if there is one, because I like having my gaze forward, because I try not to look at everyone. I don't want to make them uncomfortable. I don't know. Have you ever been to a show where like they look at you right in the eyes and you're like, oh, they looked at me?
Yeah.
So I don't want to ever do that to anybody. So I'm always looking at the exit.
Which is a good thing to do, because you don't want to be like looking at the floor or looking at the back or something. Like that's a good advice, I think, for somebody.
But whenever I do ever catch someone's eyes, I'll see them go, like they get scared. So I always look kind of above or past the crowd, and then sometimes I do notice people. Like I've seen people leave before, and then I'll be like,
really?
So I've seen people leave. So
Some
like there is a way
smoke.
to know. That's true, but that's just being an artist and second guessing yourself in the moment.
Does it bother you? I've always wondered this about bands. I went to go see Mickey Barrie a couple days ago here in San Francisco. She's doing the Mickey Barrie trio tour. And there was two people to my left talking the entire time. And this gentleman I was sitting next to, we both gave him the shut the fuck up kind of look. Does it bother you when you can see them chatting away and they're just not really into the show, and you may question like, why are you even here? Does that bother you at all?
It bothers me if I'm in the audience, and that's if it's distracting me from my experience of connecting with the show.
Yeah.
Yes. But if I'm on stage, like probably not. Like I don't know. Like if it's to the point where it's rude, I'm sure like you could depend on the audience to take care of that for you, you know? Like I feel like everyone's there together, but
I don't think we'd be really aware to there's never been like, we've never played like a show and been like, oh, everyone seems really distracted. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. But I think if you're gonna converse and talk, it's almost like talking in a library, you know, like you're not really, it's kind of just etiquette. It's just,
but it's also like, we don't want our shows to be like, I mean, we want it to be a party and be fun. So and if they're talking too loud, I'd just put the fuzz pedal on and
love it. Fuzz away. Okay, thank you for sharing some concert details and information. So what's coming down the line for the band in 2024 and beyond?
Well, we're writing right now, so I don't know if there will be much from us. We like toured that album for like the patina for a while, and it was like, it's kind of distracting from writing sometimes. So we're just going to try and not play too many shows. And we have like the only show we have booked in the future is tomorrow. So we're going to play Velvet Underground tomorrow and in Toronto. And then we're just going to kind of like really focus on the songwriting and stuff. Like we have like 3 songs done as far as the writing process, not the recording. And then we have like, 10 different ideas that could be something or not. So we're just going to kind of like hide away, I think, for a little bit.
Might be some covers in there we're working on a little bit. So don't want to give any away.
Now we have to.
Whoa.
I want us to.
Yeah.
So
it's happening now.
Yeah.
A little pour some sugar on me.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for giving us a little update there. We're going to wrap it up with a little bit of fun. This is the lightning round. I'm just going to throw out something and you just send it right back, whatever comes to your mind. You ready? Okay, Dylan, this one goes to you first. Favorite day of the week?
Ooh. Thursday, but Wednesday's starting to get good.
Sarah, the last song you downloaded?
Ooh, Voices Carry Till Tuesday.
It's a great song.
I'm obsessed.
It never gets old. It never gets old.
I'm obsessed.
We're whispering.
Yeah.
Here we go. Dylan. Dylan, a favorite holiday of yours?
Oh, I mean, it's Christmas, you know.
Sarah, fill in the blank. Taylor Swift is
Blonde.
Dylan, invisibility or super strength?
Super strength.
You already have that though.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah.
Sarah,
Yeah.
favorite junk food?
Shrimp chips.
Dylan, a Halloween costume that you felt proud wearing?
Oh. There's that good photo of us. I think you're like a cat and I'm like a greaser.
I was Sporty Spice and I was Scary Spice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It wasn't a cat.
Okay. Well, there's this like photo of us, like
Yeah,
probably
you were
the year we
Greaser.
first met or something.
The Jerry
was good.
girl.
Halloween's always something I would like to indulge in more, but I just never do. But I support everybody going very far with Halloween.
Thank you. A couple more. Sarah, what's for dinner tonight?
Oh, that's a great question. We might get some pho across the street.
Yummy.
Yeah.
Dylan, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Sarah, beer or wine?
Wine.
Really?
I don't like beer.
Well, I say beer, even though it's not for me. But
More tequila, honestly. But
Dylan, an album that you feel people should own?
Oh.
anything by the Smiths? First thing that comes to your mind.
The first thing that comes to my mind is Dean Blunt black metal.
Thank you. Sarah, currently a favorite curse word of yours?
Crumb. I guess it's not a curse word.
Crumbs.
No, crumb.
Crumb's sake.
Beep. Gotta bleep that out.
Yeah.
Kids, parents, cover your kids' ears, please.
Yeah.
No crumbs. All right, fair enough. We'll go with crumb. One more each. Dylan, here we go. If you were to invite this person to lunch, who would that be?
Personal lunch. Daniel Lanois.
Yes.
And that probably will happen, by the way. Yeah.
Okay. If you need a third person,
Yeah.
Sarah, a favorite stuffy of yours?
Ooh, my first Beanie Baby. It was
Do
a
you remember?
flappy. It was a like the hush puppy dog.
Yeah.
What are they called? The really long ears.
A bloodhound?
Yeah, kind of like a hound. Yeah, and I named it Sandy. I don't.
Is he getting Sandy?
No, this isn't Sandy, but my-
the newest one.
I love flamingos. I'm embarrassed. Put it away.
It was the zoo.
Yeah.
So listeners, I know you can't see what just happened. But just imagine a flamingo being tossed 6 feet in the air. Okay. Thank you both. This has been such a fun interview. Heartwarming, authentic, real, funny, engaging. I'm glad we were able to make this happen. I want to extend all my appreciations to you both and much continued success.
Thank you.
And yeah, for all the listeners out there, if you wouldn't mind sharing with the listeners, where can they find your work? Facebook, Bandcamp, all that?
Facebook, Bandcamp, Spotify, Apple Music.
We're mostly
YouTube.
active on Instagram, I would say, but still not too active, not that big on social media, I guess.
Don't be
But
passive aggressive.
yeah, Bandcamp is great. Every streaming platform that there is, we should be on it. You know?
Except for TikTok. We're not on TikTok.
Okay. Oh my God, this is belly laughing. Okay. And the listeners, we were listening to Exploring Some Songs. This Patina. This came out 2022.
Yeah.
Man, check it out. Okay. My name is W, also known as William, host of the High Art on the Edge page, host of Surprise Cast. And I'm going to leave everyone with another quick passage from our friend Rick Rubin. Nobody in the Surprise Cast room will respond to this. Just listen. Again, this comes from his Creative Mind book. Once a seed's code has been cracked, its true form deciphered, the process shifts. We are no longer in the unbounded mode of discovery. A clear sense of direction has arisen. Often beknownst to us, we find ourselves in the craft phase. Now comes the labor of building. We work to add a foundation that has revealed itself through our experimentation. The lines have been drawn. Now we are filling in the colors. When the earlier phases were more free and open-ended, the inspirations and ideas that appear now are more directly related to issues at hand, and we are looking for a shape that fits a specific hole, whereas before, we were just looking for shapes. Take care, everyone, and remember, great music is always out there. We just have to keep our ears open. Ciao.
Thank you.
You're welcome.